On this episode, I will show you the driving force behind MAGA. And surprisingly, it's not Donald Trump. Stay tuned on Fed Up in Minnesota. Remember this guy? Yeah, there was an awful lot of coverage a month ago when this incident first happened. But there has been a lot less coverage lately because a whole bunch of other things have kind of gotten in the way. But I have not forgotten because, first of all, it happened in my backyard. But secondly, the man who committed this act or suspected to have committed this act of reprehensible violence, named Vance BOELTER, is part of a movement of Christianity that exists and is politically active today. And this movement is politically vital to what makes up and drives the MAGA movement. I'll start out with showing you exactly what I mean by that and demonstrating the underlying foundation of all of this that I'm saying. This is a microcosm. The man accused of killing a Minnesota lawmaker and her husband had long bouts of erratic behavior and religious zealotry. The religious zealotry is exactly what it is that I am trying to emphasize here, because the foundation of MAGA depends largely upon the belief in very strong religious, extreme right religious Christian principles. And we see this when we look at Vance BOELTER's history, personal history. And if you want to go ahead and get other details about the story as it unfolded, I have couple of other videos you may want to look into and update yourself on, because it goes into some of the things that happened right when the assassination occurred, and also some of the more, I would say, extraneous details of Vance BOELTER's life and some of the things that went into defining him, and where the notion comes from that he not only had a dark past, but also that there's more to the dark past and how much it feeds into the principles that are driving MAGA to continue to wage its all-out assault against American democracy. Now, how that sort of crystallizes is in the form of Christian nationalism. So we see this, that Vance BOELTER had a huge amount of involvement in what is called basically Christian nationalist teachings. And nothing's more apparent than that, than the videos that show him preaching out in the Congo, in Laborn Matadi, a church in Matadi in the Democratic Republic of Congo, just a couple of years ago. And in those sermons, Vance BOELTER says, basically screaming about leftist politics and leftist causes and foundations of leftist causes that most of us who are on the Democratic Party left of center strongly champion and believe it. In one sermon, he tells the audience that people don't know what sex they are because the devil has gotten so far into their mind and their soul. Obviously, a reference to transgender, which is a medically proven and demonstrated by science. Also, LGBTQ community. Definitely a destructive criticism of them. In another sermon in the church, one of the three he gave from 2021 to 2023, according to Wired, Belter said, "They don't know abortion is wrong, many churches," he told the audience, "they don't have the gifts flowing. God gives the body gifts to keep balance, because when the body starts moving in the wrong direction, when they are one in accepting the gifts, God will raise an apostolic or prophet to correct their course. God is going to raise up apostles and prophets in America," he added, "to correct his church." The now defunct website for Reformation, a non-profit apparently founded by Belter, in a biography said he was ordained in 1993 and attended Christ for the Nations Institute in Dallas, a charismatic, spirit-filled Bible school, according to his website, that develops ministry skills. Sounds completely harmless enough, doesn't it? Well, not entirely. The Christ for the Nations, of course, in their defense, states they have absolutely nothing to do with any of this violent behavior, or thinking that Vance Belter eventually betrayed here in killing Melissa Portman and her husband on June 14th. But if we look at this story from the Religion News Service, we talk about the Christ for the Nations Church is a Bible school, and they train ministers, and they are part and parcel part of the movement of Christians in America, the extreme right-wing evangelicals, who are adamantly opposed, not just politically, not just by choice, not just consciously, but adamantly and almost violently opposed to anything that is on the left or center of left. And we even have, according to this author of the book, The Violent Take It by Force, The Christian Movement That Is Threatening Our Democracy, Matthew Taylor, said he had listened to some of Belter's sermons from overseas, and he did not hear any calls for violence, but did hear influences of the New Apostolic Reformation, a movement of independent, charismatic apostles and prophets that seeks to have Christians dominate all elements of society, including the government. Taylor said the opposition to abortion, which is common in NAR and other charismatic Christian circles, has spiritual overtones, with abortion often depicted as a kind of child sacrifice. I think it is significant he has apparently spent most of his life in and around the communities and channels through which pretty radical ideas are flowing, Taylor said. The search for a motive has put a spotlight on the Christ for Nation Institute, an international, influential Dallas-based Bible college for non-denominational charismatic Christians, where Belter graduated in 1990. But school officials, of course, who have confirmed Belter attended the school, said they have no contact with him since he left 3 decades ago. "We are completely unaware of what led to this kind of mental, emotional, social, and spiritual bankruptcy since he left CFNI," the school said in a statement posted to its website. This is back about a month ago. In addition, the statement denounced the hateful actions of the Minnesota shooter. CFNI unequivocally rejects, denounces, and condemns any and all forms of violence and extremism, be it politically, radically, religiously, or otherwise motivated. Our organization's mission is to educate and equip students to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ through compassion, love, prayer, service, worship, and value for human life, the Bible College said in a statement. "These are core Christian values and principles which we highly esteem and embrace, which are in stark contrast to the hateful beliefs and behavior and actions now being attributed to Mr. Belter." Now, of course, it's easy for the school to go swear it off and act like they have nothing to do with any of this, but then again, why is one of your own espouting your beliefs and then going off and carrying out these awful, horrible, despicable acts? And if we look into the history of the Christ for Nations, we find out all kinds of really bizarre things that came into its creation and its being. Christ for the Nations, founded in 1970 by a charismatic preacher and missionary Gordon Lindsay and his wife Frida, claims to have 40,000 alums in 170 nations, according to its annual report. Gordon Lindsay grew up in Zion, Illinois, a failed Christian utopia founded by John Alexander Dowie, and then became a follower of a faith healer and preacher named William Branham before launching out onto its own. according to a short film on his life produced by the ministry. Lindsay eventually started his own printing company and a magazine called The Voice of Healing. He was known for telling his students, everyone ought to pray at least one violent prayer each day, an idea still promoted by the school in promoting the power of prayer. Now, the quote has gained national attention since last weekend's attacks, with some seeing it as a sign of hostile intent, but Taylor said that the quote from Lindsay is a reference to the belief in spiritual warfare. They aren't saying a prayer to do violence against people, but it's spiritual violence, said Taylor. Yeah, tell me another story. In a statement, the school essentially agreed, saying that Lindsay's quote encourages students to incorporate passion in their prayers as they contend for what God is for them and push back against evil spiritual forces in our world. Okay, evil spiritual forces that you define as the Democratic Party simply carrying out things that they conscientiously believe are basic human rights for basic human people and the basic dignity of those people? Sure, okay, you want to push back against that? Yeah, that doesn't make you any kind of good Samaritan. Christ for the Nations does not believe in, defend, or support violence against human beings in any form, the statement read. That may be true on the website, and that may be true that Christ for the Nations doesn't stand for that. In the way that it's preaching, however, is part of a movement that has become bigger than anything else in the United States of America today, that is large part in tearing down the democracy that we've held dear since the beginning of the Bill of Rights and the Constitution was ratified and implemented. And as you look into the New Apostolic Reformation, we're going to continue to see that this whole thing goes down a rabbit hole that not only threatens the major destruction of the United States democracy, but also is in the process of continuing and to do that to this very day. So Vance BOELTER then is the end game of all of this vitriol and all of this prejudice, bigotry that's spouted by the Christian nationalist extremist right. And even though they claim they are not responsible for the acts he committed, and they stand behind their spiritual warfare and state that they are not the ones who are actually stating that he go out and do these things, their rhetoric in the end drives their adherents to believing they are fighting a battle that literally does not exist. And that pushes some of these people to the edge so that they go ahead and perform the kinds of acts that Vance BOELTER is responsible for. But more so, this is the end of part one. In part two, I will go into more detail about how more directly the rhetoric and the spiritual warfare that Christian nationalism is waging is the reason why Maga exists and is the reason why they are the ones in charge of driving this country into the ground. My name is Scott Schneider. I am fed up in Minnesota.